Portrait photography gives photographers a chance to get up close and personal with family, friends, and other subjects. When done successfully, portraiture allows photographers to capture the different personalities of their subjects. But getting that perfect shot can be challenging for many photographers, even if they've successfully captured lots of images, and it's all because they don't use the right lenses and focal lengths. So if you're a portrait photographer armed with a Canon camera, having the best Canon portrait lens in your arsenal will help you produce frame-worthy images. So without any further ado, let's start. Starting our list with Canon EF 85mm f1.4 LISUSM. This is the best owned brand Canon DSLR portrait lenses. Canon's EF 85mm f1.2 LUSM2 lens is often seen as the holy grail of portrait primes, with its super fast aperture rating, but we actually prefer this f1.4 lens. It's smaller, lighter, has a much faster autofocus system, and adds weather seals. Even more importantly, it adds a 4-stop image stabilizer, which can be a massive help in getting consistently sharp handheld images under dull ambient lighting. These upgrades stack up particularly well for wedding portraiture. Another bonus of this lens over the bigger f1.2 is that it has 9 diaphragm blades rather than 8, enabling a better rounded aperture when stopping down a little. This avoids the problem of the f1.2 lens producing noticeably octagonal bokeh discs from defocused pinpricks of light and bright spots. At number 2, it's Sigma 85mm f1.4 HSM. A supersized 85mm optic, this Sigma is a bit like the Incredible Hulk of portrait lenses. At 95 by 126mm and 1130 grams, it's by far the biggest and heaviest lens in the entire test group. Uncommonly for a Sigma lens, everything's wrapped up in a weather-resistant dust splash-proof casing, and, as with the 50mm art lens also on the test, it's compatible with Sigma's USB dock for applying firmware updates and customizing settings. Also like the Sigma 50mm lens, this one comes complete with a lens hood and padded soft case. Autofocus is fast, extremely quiet, and unerringly accurate. Sharpness away from the center of the image frame is outstanding, even when shooting wide open at f1.4, although center sharpness at the widest aperture isn't quite as spectacular as from Sigma's smaller 50mm art lens. All in all, this lens delivers a superb performance, but it's pricey and rather cumbersome for an 85mm prime lens. At number 3, it's Tamron SP 85mm f1.8 DIVC-USD for Canon. With an f1.4 and 85mm maximum aperture, this is a particularly good choice for full-frame DSLR users and, unlike most other primes, offers image stabilization for steadier handheld shots. Like its 45mm sibling below, this optic is compatible with Tamron's tap-in console. This enables the connection of the lens to a computer via USB link for updating firmware and customizing settings, such as fine-tuning autofocus. Physically smaller and lighter in weight than the competing Sigma 85mm f1.4 DGH-SMA, this optic is nevertheless larger and weightier than its EF 85mm f1.8 USM rival that shares the same maximum aperture. At 700 grams, it's still entirely manageable and feels well balanced on full-frame bodies, while the vibration compensation system is a bonus for low lighting levels. As with the Sigma lenses below, the two Tamrons on the test are also supplied with hoods to block extraneous light. Internal focusing, meanwhile, powered by ring-type ultrasonic systems, results in the front elements remaining fixed throughout the focusing range. At f1.8, the Tamron is more than sharp enough for portraiture, and the level of sharpness is consistent across the whole frame. Bokeh is wonderfully smooth, even more so than with the Tamron SP 45mm f1.8 DIVC-USD, helped by the longer focal length. At number 4, it's Canon f85mm f1.8 USM. A space-saving, lightweight and affordable option. There's a lot to love for this lens for portraiture with a full-frame camera like the EOS 6D Mark II and EOS 5D Mark IV. Furthermore, as one of Canon's recommended lenses, it is sufficiently sharp for use with the ultra-high-resolution EOS 5DS and 5DSR bodies. Like the company's EF 50mm f1.4 USM, this one has a fairly well-rounded aperture based on 8 diaphragm blades. It beats that lens by having a ring-type, rather than motor-based ultrasonic autofocus system, which is both fast and very quiet. Sharpness isn't spectacular at f1.8, but, for portraiture, it's easily good enough to capture individual hairs and skin pores, along with excellent detail in the eyes. Border sharpness, however, is generally unnecessary in portraiture, where you're normally more concerned with defocused softness or bokeh, which it does very well. Overall, a top value choice for full-frame shooters. At number 5, it's Canon EF 50mm f1.8 STM. Certainly no heavyweight, Canon's latest 50mm f1.8 is only 30 grams heavier, 1mm wider, and 16mm longer than the 40mm pancake lens on the test. That's pretty impressive, considering its longer focal length and faster f1.8 aperture rating. At 49mm, the filter attachment thread is even smaller, but this time the front element is quite deeply recessed, which makes the ES68 lens hood a genuinely optional accessory. As well as its more advanced autofocus system, other upgrades over the previous EF50mm f1.8 lenses include a metal, rather than the plastic mounting plate, and 7 diaphragm blades rather than 5, which give a more well-rounded aperture. This is particularly useful for avoiding the obvious pentagonal shapes of defocused bright objects when stopping down a little, which plagued images taken with the earlier 50mm lenses. Performance in terms of color fringing is about equal to the previous version, and there's marginally less barrel distortion. Overall, at this price, the 50mm f1.8 STM is a steal. With that, we come to the end of the review. We are pretty sure this video will help you to make better decisions.